Aside from quarterback, you can argue that edge rusher is the most important part of an NFL franchise. So let's take a look at all the free agents from across the NFL this year and see which edge rusher is right for your team. Welcome to Jets Talk. My name is Ryan. I'll be your pilot today. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button. If you've been here before, welcome back. I love having you here. Seriously, if you like me doing these breakdown videos, hit the subscribe button. It helps with the YouTube algorithm. Let's do a little bit of housekeeping first. Mondays, 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock, live call-in show. Tuesdays, 9 o'clock, we do our Talkin' Jets panel. So tune into those if you are so inclined. But today we are here to talk about edge rushers. We have already covered offensive linemen, wide receivers, and cornerbacks. Those are linked up above and down below and whatnot. But we are looking at edge rushers now. So these are the most important players on the team outside of the quarterback, in my opinion. And it's something that the Jets have not had really since John Abraham in, 2005 when we traded him and got Nick Mangold. Man, it's been quite a while, Jet fans. These are a bunch of players that I want to look at, and we're going to grade them the same way we have, obviously. Let's take a look at the rules for this category. We're going to look at their age, Pro Football Focus grade, their pass rush grade, their run defense grade. Sacks and tackles for loss are going to be combined just because they are both negative plays behind the line of scrimmage. I thought that was a good way to kind of look at that. Pressures are going to be its own separate category. We're going to look at their health, the amount of penalties they've caused to prevent their team from, getting off the field, the amount we expect their contract to be, and that will get your overall grade. You can earn up to 3 fighter jets, but beware of the butt fumble. You get no points for butt fumbling. The final categories are going to be marry, kill. Is going to be a 1-year contract. You don't want to stay with that person long term. Marry, you want a long-term contract. You want to stay with that person for a long time. And kill, you just don't want them at all. So without further ado, let's jump right into the list. The first player we're going to take a look at is ARIK Armstead, the edge rusher from the San Francisco 49ers. This is a huge human being. 6'7", 290 pounds. He can line up inside or outside, and he is just going to physically dominate you. He will push you out of the way. He doesn't quite have the burst like some of these other edge rushers are going to have, but he is very fast for someone that is 6'7". So his knock is probably going to be that he's playing on a defensive line with Bosa and Buckner, but make no mistake, ARIK Armstead is a freak of nature. Let's jump right into the grading. He's 26 years old, so that'll be 2 fighter jets there. Pro Football Focus grade was a 90, pass rush grade 76, run grade 88. Sacks and tackles for a loss only had 27, so not very good there. But like I said, he did start to come on a little bit late. The end of the 2018 season into last year, he has really been unstoppable, and I think you'll start to see these numbers increase. With pressures, he had 103. That was one of the lower end areas for us on this list, so not great in terms of that. Health, he was healthy for 78% or available for 78% of his games. So he's going to earn 1 fighter jet there. Penalties, he's only had 5, so 3 fighter jets in that category. I think he's going to be really expensive. I think he has shown enough over the last year and a half or so to at least earn a very expensive 1-year prove-it contract. He may not get a long-term multi-year deal just yet, but I got him down with a total score of 13. And I would definitely look at this player in free agency. I don't necessarily think he is a perfect fit for the Jets because ideally I would love for QUINN Williams to kind of wind up being this sort of athlete. And I would prefer more of a bendy type pass rusher on the edge. But for 1 year, if the Jets can get him, I would be totally happy with that. Next player up on our list is Shaquil Barrett, the 6'2", 250-pound edge rusher from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And how frustrated must the Broncos be that they let Shaq Barrett walk out the door. This man had 19.5 sacks this past year with 6 forced fumbles. He has been absolutely unstoppable. The Buccaneers have a ton of cap space. They have $80 million in cap space, so I definitely see him being franchised. I don't think he's really going to hit the open market, but I still want to take a look at him and see, maybe if a team wants to offer up a ton of money in draft compensation, if they want to do a tag and trade or something like that, but I think he's probably going to go back to Tampa Bay. Let's look at his overall rankings. Age 27, 2 fighter jets there. Pro Football Focus grade 77 overall. Pass rush grade 82, run grade 71, so very good in the pass rushing side. Obviously 19.5 sacks, probably going to help you out. Sacks and tackles for a loss, he had 44, so 2 fighter jets there. Pressures 150, that was very good, 2 fighter jets for him there. healthy for 80% of his games, healthy and available for that. So, all right, not great, on the lower end of things, not quite a butt fumble, but would have liked to have seen a little bit more activeness, I guess. Penalties 15 over the last 4 years. That was 2 fighter jets for him there. I think he's going to be incredibly expensive. He is going to cost a ton of money, whether you franchise him or you lock him up long term. He is going to be a ton of money. Has a total grade of 16. If you can get him away from the Bucks, I think you absolutely do it. It would be an absolute home run. The next player we're going to take a look at is Vic Beasley, the 6'3", 246-pound edge rusher from the Atlanta Falcons. Now, Vic Beasley came out the same year as Leonard Williams, so there was a lot of discussion should the Jets reinforce a strength and take another defensive tackle in Leonard Williams or take the edge rusher who might be a little bit worse in terms of scouted player at that pick in Vic Beasley. And by and large, now that Leonard Williams is not here, I think the Jets probably should have opted to have taken Vic Beasley. But that is not what we are discussing. We are talking about Vic Beasley, the free agent. And this is a player that I caution a lot of people on because I think he's going to get a lot of money, and I don't think the production is there. I think a lot of it is fool's gold. So let's get right into it. He's 28 years old. He'll get 1 fighter jet for that. Pro Football Focus grade this past year was a 59. Pass rush grade 62, so 2 butt fumbles there. Run stopping grade was 61. 1 fighter jet for that. Sacks and tackles for a loss, not too bad, 48.5. It was right on the cusp of being a 3. I think if he had gotten to 50, I would have done it. So, maybe add 1 point there if you want. Pressures, that's 146. That's good for 2 fighter jets. Health, 98%. He's been very available for his team. Penalties, 23 overall. Not very good. 1 fighter jet for that. Like I said, I think he's going to be very expensive. I think the name recognition is something that is huge with top 10 picks. He scored a 10 overall on this list. So there you are, Vic Beasley. The next player up on my list is going to be the most well-known player in this free agency class. That's JADEVEON CLOWNEY, the edge rusher from the Seattle Seahawks. He's 6'5", 255 pounds. He's the biggest name on this list. He was the number 1 pick in the 2014 draft. He's really had a little bit of a hard time staying on the field. Health has been a little bit of a concern for him, and he just looks like a man among boys. He just throws people out of the way, and he's a freak of nature when he's on the field. You really can't compare him to too many other players. He's 27 years old. He gets 2 fighter jets for that. Pro Football Focus grade was the second highest on this list at 87 with a pass rush grade of 79, run defense grade of 81. Sacks and tackles for a loss, 78.5. I actually broke my scoring habit here. I gave him 4 stars because it is absolutely incredible how many tackles and sacks he has. He's so much higher. I want to say he's like 20 or 30 higher than the second place guy. So I gave him 4 fighter jets for that. Pressures, 195. That was the highest or tied for the highest, I believe, on this list. Get some 3 fighter jets there. Health, like I said, not real healthy. 78%. Going to get him 1 star, 1 fighter jet. Penalties, he has the most by a country mile, 50. He's 50. That is going to earn him a butt fumble. Look, he's going to be really expensive. He's going to cost you a crap ton of money. And it makes sense. The guy's a hugely well-recognized name. He has the production when he's on the field. 18 overall was the score. Now, personally, if the Jets could get him, look, I would love it. But I think in terms of the value that the Jets would get from this type of signing with all the holes that we have, he's not healthy enough for me, and he causes too many penalties, and the Jets need to build the offensive line more. I think you could be better well-served with another edge rusher on this list, at least in terms of the Jets. So 18 overall, JADEVEON CLOWNEY, highest score on this list. The next player we're going to look at is a little bit longer in the tooth. The oldest player on this list, it's VINNY Curry. He is an edge rusher from the Philadelphia Eagles. He's 6'3", 279 pounds, and he is not the fastest guy off the edge, but he's going to beat you with sound technique. He's 32 years old, so obviously, like I said, butt fumble for that. Pro Football Focus grade, 78. Pass rush grade, 80. 3 fighter jets for that. Run defense grade, 63. So really just use this guy in pass rush situations. You may not want to have him in there on first down. Sacks and tackles for a loss were 33, so really not too good. He's either generating sacks and probably just not stopping the run. That would be my guess. Pressures, 131 over the last 4 years, so 2 fighter jets there. Health, 88%, another 2 fighter jets for that. Penalties, 6. That was one of the best on this list. Doesn't get penalized. Overall cost, I put him down as 2 money signs with a total score of 14. And I think VINNY Curry is a fine 1-year stopgap for your edge rusher situation. And with Joe Douglas having the Eagles connection, I can see there being a potential desire to bring him in here, and I would not be opposed to it. I just don't want to break the bank for him, and I also don't think it is a solution long term. But for 1 year, not too bad. You could move on with Vinny Curry. Up next, we have Bud Dupree, the 6'4", 269-pound edge rusher from the Pittsburgh Steelers. Pittsburgh has about $2 million in cap space, and they would have to cut a ton of players to hold on to Dupree. He's fast off the edge, has a very good bend, has a large array of pass rush moves. He's not amazing in any one particular area, but arguably the most well-rounded of the edge rushers, I think, from across the board. I don't think he'll get the highest contract on this list, but I think he's definitely going to be desirable. He's 27 years old, Pro Football Focus grade of 78, pass rush grade 76, run 75. Sacks and tackles for a loss were pretty good here, 57.5 over the last 4 years. Pressures 137, so another 2 fighter jets for that. Health, been pretty healthy, 88% available for his games. Penalties, 16, not too bad, 2 fighter jets for that. Like I said, 3 money signs. I think this guy's going to be pretty expensive. 16 was the score I gave him overall, and he would be one of the top few options for me, I think, if I were the New York Jets. I would look to sign him. He's young enough. He has enough upside at this point in time. I would look for it. I think he's definitely hitting free agency. Bud Dupree, 16 points here. The next player is a player that I have harped on for the last 3 years now, so I'm not going to stop here, and that's Dante Fowler, the edge rusher from the LA Rams. 6'3", 255 pounds, obviously started his career with Jacksonville, has spent time with the Rams the last few years. Now, I really like him. He hasn't had elite level production, which might help keep his price down. He's 26 years old, so still very, very young. Pro Football Focus grade, 72 overall. Pass rush grade, 73. Run grade, 75. Sacks and tackles for loss, 34.5, so 2 fighter jets for that. Pressures were 116, 1 fighter jet there. Healthy and available for 98% of his games. This is a very important factor. You can only be as good as you are available. So if you are not available, you can't be on the field. You're not helping your team. He's always on the field for his teams. Penalties, 23 penalties, not very good there. He got 1 fighter jet. I put down 2 money signs. I don't know what his market's going to be because I think we have a lot of really good pass rushers. He has a total score of 12 on this list, so not overly high. I would look into Dante Fowler because I don't think he's going to cost a crazy ton of money, and if you're the Jets, you kind of need to fill a lot of holes, and this is one that would definitely be an upgrade for anything we've had in the last few years. The next player on our list, Jet fans are going to be very familiar with, and that is Jordan Jenkins, 6'3", 260 pounds, and he has gotten more sacks in each one of his first 4 years in the NFL. He hasn't had, any kind of elite level production by any stretch of the imagination. I think he could be one of the cheaper options to hold on to. I'd really like to bring him back. I had us mocked and bringing him back in my mock offseason. Let's take a look at him. 26 years old, 2 fighter jets there. Pro Football Focus grade, 67, not very good. I think that was the worst on this list. Butt fumble for him there. Pass rush grade was a 67. So as a pass rusher, a guy that got us 8 sacks, we're grading him out as a butt fumble here. So just keep that in mind. Run defense grade, 63, so not even real great there. 1 fighter jet for that. Tackles and sacks, or tackles behind the line of scrimmage, 35.5, 1 fighter jet for that. Pressures only 102, so he'll earn another butt fumble there. Health, 94%, very good. That's, I guess a good trait to have if you're not going to be good at all these other categories, or at least grade higher in one of them. Penalties, 12 penalties over the last 4 years, so pretty good. Give him 2 fighter jets for that. Like I said, I don't think he's going to cost very much. I gave him a 9 overall in terms of this grading system. I really want Jordan Jenkins back. I think he plays a critical role in this Jets defense in terms of, I don't want to say consistency because I've used that term too much, but I think in terms of filling a hole that may not cost a lot. If he's looking for a lot of money, I have no problem moving on from him because I think there are way better options than him out in free agency based on the scoring here. The next player on my list is Matthew Judon, the edge rusher from the Baltimore Ravens, 6'3", 261 pounds. And this is an interesting option because we have C.J. Mosley, so there's at least a player connection there, as well as having the Joe Douglas connection from Baltimore, so you could potentially see that as a pipeline for him to recruit some talent. 28 years old, 1 fighter jet for him there, so not the youngest on here, but still serviceable for probably the next 2 years, 3 years. Pro Football Focus grade, 71. Pass rush grade, 78, so he can definitely get around the corner. Run defense grade, 59, not very good, one of the worst here. But if you're using him as a pass rusher, maybe Jordan Jenkins can be the run stopper on the other side. Who knows? He's actually what I would want Jordan Jenkins to be at his prime. That's kind of how I envision Judon. So if Jenkins is gone, this is someone I'd probably look at. Sacks and tackles for a loss, 52.5. That was really good. 3 fighter jets there. Pressures, 149. Gave him 2 for that. Healthy and available for 97% of his games. 3 fighter jets for that. Very good there. Penalties, 21 penalties over the last 4 years. Not great. 1 fighter jet. Cost, I put him down as 2 money signs with a total grade of 13. And that's just because I think there's a lot of pass rushing options out there. And I don't think he will fetch the most money out there. I think he will get a good contract. Maybe more than you would be comfortable paying someone like this, but I think he is someone that you could get reasonably. I don't think you'd have to go crazy over the top. The next player on my list is SHAQ LAWSON, the 6'3", 267-pound edge rusher from the Buffalo Bills, and I would be very hesitant to sign him, and not because of anything that he does or does not do well, but when I see a team like the Buffalo Bills who have about $100 million in cap space not bring back a guy like this, that gives me pause for concern. Let's take a look at it. Age 26 overall, so pretty young there. Pro Football Focus grade was 68. That was a butt fumble for him. Pass rush grade 69, so not really what the Jets are necessarily looking for. We want a pass rusher. Run defense grade 62. Again, not a great grade there. Sacks and tackles for a loss were all right, 40.5. Pressures were 96. That was the worst on this list, so really not very good. Health, only available for 78% of his total games, so 1 fighter jet for that. Penalties, pretty good, 7, but if you are only available for 78% of your games, then you should not have too many penalties. Cost overall, I have him as a very cheap option. I think I have him as probably the cheapest option on this list. He scores a 9, just like Jordan Jenkins, and this is someone that's maybe a reclamation project, someone that should probably sign a 1-year prove-it deal to, maximize his earning potential in the future. If he signs a long-term deal now, I don't think it's going to be for very much money. Up next is the player I want more than any other player in this free agent class for edge rushers, and that's YANNIK NGAKOUE, the 6'2", 246-pound edge rusher from the Jacksonville Jaguars. And the Jags are very close to the cap. They're actually $3 million over the cap right now. They could cut Darius and Boye and save close to $30 million. They could also look to move on from Brandon Linder at center because they could save, I think, about $8 million from there. So if we're looking for offensive line help, Jet fans, maybe Linder could potentially be an option. I don't know if they're going to re-sign NGAKOUE. It would cost them a lot of money. They're probably going to have to franchise him if they do want to do that, and they have already spent a very high draft pick on Josh Allen. So I think maybe a tag and trade is possible, kind of like a D4 situation, but more than likely, I think NGAKOUE is going to hit free agency. He's lightning quick off the edge with a very, very mean chop block or chop cut. He just knifes down those arms, and he has a real knack for stripping the ball. He has 14 forced fumbles in his short career. At 25 years old, he's the youngest player on this list, 3 fighter jets for that. Pro Football Focus grade was a 72, so only 1 star for that, but pass rush grade was a 78. I think that's pretty solid for him. Run, 52, butt fumble for that. But again, if you're not really using him as a run stopper anyway, just let loose and let him go after the quarterback. Sacks and tackles for a loss were one of the best in this class, 50.5. Pressures tied for the most with, I believe it was JADEVEON CLOWNEY, 195, 3 fighter jets for that. Available and healthy for 98% of his games. Penalties, only 15 through the last 4 years, so he has 2 fighter jets for that. And he is going to be so expensive. He has got a total grade of 17 on this list, and I think he's going to get a ton of money. If I'm the Jets, I back up the Brinks truck for this guy because I want him. He looks really good. I think he's just about to break out and have an absolutely phenomenal prime of his career. This is someone you really want to invest in, and there is going to be a ton of competition. Whoever signs him is going to shell out big, big bucks, and I really hope it's the Jets. The next player up on my list is probably more so a situational pass rusher than anything else, and that's Robert Quinn, the 6'4", 260-pound edge rusher from the Dallas Cowboys. He's 30 years old, so he's going to earn himself a butt fumble. Pro Football Focus grade, 69, with a pass rush grade of 78. So like I said, pretty good grade at the pass rushing ability. Probably won't want to focus on the run too much. He gets a 53 for his run defense grade. Sacks and tackles for a loss, respectable, 42.5. So I think with such a bad run grade, you're probably seeing more of this pass rush ability in his sacks and tackles for loss. Pressures, 146 over the last 4 years, so that's going to get him 2 fighter jets. Healthy and available for 87. It's all right, not too bad, middle of the pack. Penalties only 12, so he's been pretty good in terms of not penalizing and not putting his team in bad situations. Cost, I think he's going to be cheap. Based on his age and the amount of pass rushers in this class, I don't think he's going to be as crazy expensive as some of these other guys. He gets a 10 overall for me, and that's someone that I think I would bring in maybe as a day or tier 2 option, someone that you swung and missed on some of these other pass rushers, or maybe they're going to teams that have a better chance to compete than the Jets. Robert Quinn, someone I think you could look at least give you that situational pass rush. The next player up on my list is another division rival. That's Kyle Van Noy, the edge rusher from the New England Patriots, 6'3", 250 pounds, and he is just technically sound all the way around. Age 29 years old, Pro Football Focus grade was 84, so really good. 2 fighter jets for that. Pass rush grade was 69, so probably not something that the Jets would want to look for in terms of their pass rushing ability. Run stopping grade was an 85, so maybe potentially a Jordan Jenkins stopgap if you wanted to let him walk. Sacks and tackles for a loss, 31.5, so not really good. Pretty much shows that he's stopping guys just past the line of scrimmage, I would think. Pressures, 116. That wasn't very high on our list as well. Health, 84%. Not too bad. Pretty available. Penalties, 4. That's the, I guess, Belichickian way of not getting penalties. So highest score on this list. I think he's going to cost 2 money signs. I gave him a total score of 12. I think the name recognition is pretty good, but I could also see him kind of falling in the role of Robert Quinn only for the run defense side of things. So I don't know. He's somewhere between maybe 1.5 and 2. I don't think I would go after Kyle Van Noy as a Jet fan. I think I would prefer someone with a little more pass rushing ability. The final player on my list is someone that is not technically a free agent right now as of recording this video, but I do think he could be a salary cap cut, and that's Olivier Vernon from the Cleveland Browns. 6'2", 262 pounds. He could save the Browns $15.5 million against their salary cap if they decide to move on from him. He's still grading out well for an edge rusher, even at his age of 29 years old, and I would not want to commit many years to him because of that. I think the age is probably the biggest concern here. Age, like I said, 29 years old. Pro Football Focus grade was 80, so middle of the pack there. Pass rush grade, 76. Run grade, 69, so it's weird to see a Pro Football Focus grade higher than the 2 parts of the actual grade, but that's where you get the consistency. Because he is pretty good at both these things, kind of bumps up his Pro Football Focus grade. So 1 fighter jet and 2 fighter jet respectively for that. Sacks and tackles for a loss were only 38, so really not that great. Pressures, 183. I almost feel like this is the Leonard Williams argument where maybe he's not getting a ton of sacks, but he's getting all those pressures, and you don't really see the impact on the box score, but 3 fighter jets for that. That was pretty good. Health, 88% healthy, available for most of his team's games. Can't be upset for that. Penalties, 12. That's 2 fighter jets from there. I think he's going to be mildly expensive. I gave him a total score of 14, and I think he's still capable. I think teams are still going to find this valuable. Pretty big name, but I don't think he's going to get the long-term contract that some of these other players are going to get. So 2 money signs for him there. In terms of our overall grading, I have to decide who I want to marry, or kill. We're going to pick 2 for each of these categories. Up first, I think ARMSTEAD with a score of 13 is someone that I would really look into. He's been good for the last year and a half. He's really starting to come on. He's a monster at 6'7", 290 pounds. Just an absolute freak of an athlete. I would also choose Olivier Vernon. I think he's a good stopgap 1 year, 2 year kind of fill-in player right there that may not cost you a crazy ton of money. Marry, I had to toss and turn a little bit on this. I really like JADEVEON CLOWNEY, but I think the health and penalties are very concerning for me. And for the amount of money you're going to have to pay him, I would prefer YANNIK NGAKOUE and Bud Dupree. Those would be the 2 guys I'd marry. I think they have a ton of upside. I'm really, really excited, and hopefully the Jets go after one of these 2 players. Kill, unfortunately, Jordan Jenkins. I would kill you on this list, and SHAQ LAWSON. Those would be the 2 guys that I would round out my entire list. Guys, Mondays, 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock, I do my live call-in show. Tuesdays, I do the Talkin' Jets panel with O'Leary, Greenbean, and David, so tune into that if you feel so inclined. If you want to talk more about these edge rushers, let me know who you want down below in the comments. And as always, go Jets.